In the heart of Paris, rising above the Seine, stands a cathedral that has seen nearly 9 centuries of triumph, turmoil, and rebirth. Notre-Dame de Paris isn't just a church, it's the soul of the city, a survivor of revolutions, wars, and even fire, whose twin towers have watched over Paris since the Middle Ages. From its towering Gothic spires and flying buttresses to the haunting gargoyles perched on its edges, Notre Dame has inspired countless legends, novels, and films. And yet, beneath the familiar facade lies a story of hidden symbols, ancient rites, and enduring mysteries that most visitors never notice. I'm James, but online I go by Andrade. I travel, sometimes in person, sometimes through deep research, to the world's most iconic and mysterious landmarks. While I sketch them live, this time with pen and ink, we'll uncover not just their beauty, but their histories, secrets, and the stranger layers of their design. Today, as I draw Notre Dame, we'll follow its story from the 12th century Paris of crusaders and kings through revolutionary desecration and 19th century restoration, and into the modern-day battle to save it after the 2019 fire. But we'll also go deeper into the Gothic geometry, esoteric symbols, and strange lore woven into its walls, from its alchemical carvings to its legendary Devil's Door, said to guard the faithful. Grab a seat and watch the sketch come alive as we explore the history, the grandeur, and the mysteries of the most famous Gothic cathedral in the world, Notre-Dame de Paris. The story of Notre Dame begins in the 12th century when Paris was still a medieval city crowded with the timber houses, narrow streets, and a rising population of merchants, scholars, and pilgrims. The Ile de la Cité, the island in the middle of the Seine, was already a spiritual center, home to a small Romanesque church of Saint Stephen. But in 1163, during the reign of King Louis VII, construction began on something far more ambitious. Bishop Maurice de Sully envisioned a cathedral that would not just serve Paris, but would stand as a monument to the growing power of the French monarchy and the church. Pope Alexander III himself is said to have laid the first stone. This new cathedral would embody a style that was still in its infancy, Gothic architecture. Its soaring pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and revolutionary flying buttresses would allow for unprecedented height and walls filled with stained glass, flooding the interior with colored light. It was architecture designed to make the faithful feel as if they were stepping into heaven itself. Over the next century, Paris watched as Notre Dame rose, its 2 massive towers climbing skyward, while workshops filled the air with the sounds of hammers, chisels, and the clatter of wagons, bringing stone from distant quarries. Guilds of craftsmen, stonecutters, carpenters, metalworkers, each left their subtle marks, many of which can still be found hidden in the structure today. By the time the main structure was completed in 1260, Notre Dame was unlike anything Paris had ever seen, a towering, luminous cathedral that dominated the skyline, anchoring the city's spiritual and civic life. But this was just the beginning of its long, often turbulent history, a history that would see it crowned, desecrated, restored, and nearly lost more than once. For centuries after its completion, Notre Dame was the beating heart of Paris. It hosted royal coronations, processions, and even the 1431 crowning of England's Henry VI as King of France during the 100 Years' War. But its fortunes would change dramatically in the late 18th century. During the French Revolution of the 1790s, Notre Dame was seen not as a sacred space, but as a symbol of monarchy and church power. Revolutionary forces stripped its treasures, melted down many of its bells and sacred objects, and even beheaded statues of Old Testament kings along the facade, mistakenly thinking they represented French royalty. For a time, the cathedral was rededicated as a temple of reason, a stark reminder of the era's radical break from tradition. By the early 1800s, the once glorious cathedral had fallen into disrepair. Roofs leaked, sculptures crumbled, and its great organ sat silent. It might have faded into ruin if not for an unexpected savior, a novel. In 1831, Victor Hugo published The Hunchback of Notre-Dame, a story that painted the cathedral as a central, almost living character. The book ignited a wave of public passion for Gothic architecture, sparking calls to save the building. By 1844, a massive restoration project was underway, led by architects Eugène Villot-le-Duc and Jean-Baptiste Lassus. They repaired structural damage, rebuilt the spire, and even added some of their own Gothic-inspired touches, blending medieval and 19th century visions into the structure we know today. The 20th and 21st centuries brought new challenges. 2 world wars, pollution, and the devastating 2019 fire, which consumed much of the roof and Vieux-le-Duc's iconic spire. Yet again, the world rallied. Reconstruction is now underway, with the goal of reopening by 2024, in time for the Paris Olympics. Notre Dame's survival through revolutions, neglect, and catastrophe speaks to its power. For Parisians and millions worldwide, it's more than a building. It's a symbol of endurance rising from the ashes time and time again. Step inside Notre Dame and the chaos of the city outside, the horns, the chatter, the hum of Paris, fades into something entirely different. The first thing you notice isn't the stained glass or the statues, it's the height. The nave stretches over 130 feet high, with ribbed vaults arching like skeletal hands into the sky. The pointed arches and columns pull your gaze upward, making the space feel endless. It's a trick of Gothic architecture, not just to shelter worshippers, but to make them feel the weight of heaven above and the smallness of their own lives below. Then comes the light. On a sunny day, the famous rose windows bloom like cosmic wheels of color, their glass filtering sunlight into deep blues, rich reds, and shimmering golds that slowly drift across the stone floor as the day passes. The north and south transept roses, some 42 feet across, seem to float like halos, each one telling a different biblical story in intricate, glowing detail. Sound behaves differently here too. A whisper near the nave can travel astonishing distances, while the deep notes of the organ, one of the largest in France, with nearly 8,000 pipes, roll through the air like waves, reverberating up the vaults and back down in softened echoes. During evening vespers, the combination of chants, flickering candlelight, and drifting incense turns the interior into something that feels suspended in time. Even without a service, Notre Dame's interior feels alive. There's a faint scent of burned wax, ancient wood, and cool limestone. The sensory residue of nearly 9 centuries of worship and survival. For most who step inside, even those without faith, it seems and feels like crossing a threshold into another world. One built not just of stone, but of sound, light, and centuries of human devotion. Notre Dame has always been more than just a church. For Paris, it's a symbol of identity and endurance, and every part of its design carries meaning, for the faithful, for the city, and for history itself. Beneath the soaring nave, in a gilded reliquary, lies one of its most famous treasures, the crown of thorns, believed by many to be the one placed on Christ's head before the crucifixion. Alongside it, the relics of the true cross and one of the holy nails make Notre Dame not just a house of worship, but a magnet for pilgrims from around the world. These relics survived the 2019 fire and are now safeguarded, waiting to return once restoration is complete. The statues and sculptures that line the facade and roof also carry layers of meaning. The 28 statues of biblical kings along the west facade, decapitated during the French Revolution, were later rediscovered and restored, a quiet testament to the cathedral's survival. The gargoyles and chimeras, often mistaken as purely decorative, serve practical purposes as rain spouts, but also represent the medieval fascination with warding off evil, as if the grotesque figures were guardians watching over the city. Even the massive rose windows serve more than just an artistic role. Each one acts as a cosmic diagram depicting scenes from the Last Judgment, the lives of saints, and the celestial order, designed to teach the faithful through images when most could not read. Their sermons in glass, turning the cathedral into a living Bible. For Parisians, these layers of meaning, relics, statues, windows, make Notre Dame a symbolic heart of the city, a place that ties together its sacred, cultural, and civic identity. That's why when the spire fell in flames in 2019, people wept openly on the banks of the Seine. They weren't just watching a building burn, they were watching a part of Paris' soul in peril. Notre Dame wasn't just another cathedral when it was built. It pushed Gothic architecture into a new era. Its designers used mathematics and ingenuity to create a building that felt impossibly light, tall, and alive compared to the squat Romanesque churches that came before it. At its core are the ribbed vaults and pointed arches, which channel the weight of the stone not straight down but along precise curves into columns and piers. This innovation allowed the builders to make the walls thinner and taller, opening space for stained glass windows that turned the interior into a kaleidoscope of light. But perhaps the most iconic innovation is the flying buttress. These external arches, which seem to leap away from the building before curving back in, weren't part of the earliest plans. They were added during construction in the late 12th and early 13th centuries, as the soaring walls began to push outward under their own weight. Far from flawed, these supports became one of Gothic architecture's most defining features, giving Notre Dame its skeletal, otherworldly silhouette. The cathedral's floor plan itself is a Latin cross, oriented along an east-west axis so that the sun rises through the choir and sets behind the great western facade, a symbolic nod to resurrection and the passage of time. From the ground, the proportions feel natural, but the entire layout is rooted in sacred geometry. Ratios and measurements believed in the Middle Ages to reflect divine harmony. All of this, the vaults, the buttresses, the geometry, wasn't just about stability, it was about creating a structure that felt weightless and transcendent, a man-made space that could hint at the order of heaven itself while standing firmly on the earth. Beneath the grandeur and Gothic beauty of Notre Dame lies another story, one of alchemy, hidden symbols, and whispered legends that have followed this cathedral for centuries. In the Middle Ages, cathedrals were more than houses of worship. They were often called books in stone, filled with coded messages. Notre Dame is no exception. Many of its carvings, particularly those along the north transept, depict strange, almost occult imagery. Figures mixing animals and humans, geometric patterns, and what some scholars interpret as alchemical symbols. One of the most famous legends centers on the Devil's Door, a side portal whose intricate ironwork was forged by a young blacksmith named Biscorn in the 13th century. According to legend, Biscorn made a pact with the devil to complete the commission, as the complexity of the patterns was said to be beyond human skill at the time. The story goes that when the portal was blessed, the devil claimed Biscorn's soul, and the door itself could only be opened with holy water. Some researchers also point to the cathedral's alignment and proportions as evidence of deeper hidden intent. Notre Dame is not only oriented along the traditional east-west axis, but some claim it aligns with other ancient sites across Paris, forming what's been dubbed a ley line of power. Whether coincidence or design, this idea adds to the aura of mystery. Then there's the connection to alchemy and transformation. In the 19th century, occult writers like Fulcanelli suggested that Notre Dame's sculptures encode secrets of the Philosopher's Stone, with its grotesques and figures acting as allegories for stages of alchemical transformation. To some, the cathedral itself isn't just a church, it's a stone grimoire, a place where spiritual and esoteric knowledge were embedded for those who knew how to read it. Whether these stories are legend, coded wisdom, or just the human need to find mystery in great works, Notre Dame carries an energy of layered meaning, a Gothic masterpiece that feels, even now, like it's keeping some of its secrets to itself. After nearly 9 centuries, Notre-Dame de Paris remains more than just a cathedral. It's the soul of Paris, a place that has witnessed kings and emperors, revolutionaries and restorers, and millions of ordinary people who've stood in awe beneath its towers. Through desecration, neglect, and even the devastating 2019 fire, Notre Dame has risen time and time again, each rebirth reinforcing its role not just as a monument of faith, but as a symbol of endurance and transformation. To Parisians, it's not just a landmark, it's a living thread that ties the medieval city to the modern world. Drawing it, watching the lines of the rose windows mix onto the page, the flying buttresses and gargoyles take shape, it's a reminder of why these places matter. They aren't just relics of history, they're living witnesses to centuries of art, ambition, and mystery. If you want to join me as we explore more of the world's greatest cathedrals and monuments, sketching them live while diving into their histories, secrets, and esoteric layers, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next sketch and story episode. Turn on the bell so YouTube actually notifies you when we go live. Please like this video so more people who love art, history, and mystery can discover it. And tell me in the comments, which legendary cathedral or site do you want to see brought to life next? We've got some incredible places coming up, and I'd love for you to be here, sketch by sketch, as we uncover them.